What up, everybody? Joel here, aka Pyro, and today I'm doing a little review on Kendrick Lamar's new album, GNX. Now, this is going to be kind of haphazard. It's going to be a little thrown together. My wife's watching TV here in the other room, and we haven't finished moving, so you'll have to forgive me if things are a little wonky and the camera's not at great resolution and whatnot. But I just really want to talk about this album. Basically, listening to this all of December. It's been I've probably listened to the album, I kid you not, probably 30 times. To give a little history here, I grew up listening to like Tupac, Ice Cube, your West Coast hip gangster rap, realistically. And then kind of went to like your club music when I was in my teens, 50 Cent, Lil Wayne. When Kendrick dropped, I actually, while I liked the instrumental because it kind of had this like West Coast sound, I didn't really care for his vocals. And then I kind of, I was working, I had a family, and I was not able to cover as much music as I typically would. So I kind of got out of hip hop, and I've basically just kind of been bouncing around listening to rock, punk, and metal, especially punk in the last like 2-3 years. So yeah, this has been interesting to come back to this, but he just kind of dropped it out of nowhere. So I was like weirdly excited about that. And I was like, okay, he's going to be at the Super Bowl. I feel like this is something I should probably cover. Right. But hip hop is not, I'm too dumb for bars to break down bars. So you're not going to get anything here. You're going to hear what some dude that grew up with, cornfields surrounding his house, what he thinks. I mean, even though I live in the city now. But anyways, I think, like I said, I just found, to give you an idea how far behind I am, Damn and Humble I found this year as well. So I am incredibly behind in this area of music, and I plan on this next year trying to maybe catch up a little bit because I really, really love this. Some really, really cool things. And honestly, I think I would listen to the instrumental just by itself with no lyrics on it, which is very, very rare for any kind of music, especially hip hop. Like, I'm not into beats. Beats aren't my thing. I typically don't come out of a song going, I'll go, oh, that beat sounds really cool, but like, I'm not catching the little intricate differences in those beats by any means. I'm like, oh, this is pretty sweet. But what got me into hip hop, before we dive in here, was kind of Tupac and storytelling, and that's what attracted me to this album a lot. When you have somebody that grew up in a completely opposite culture than what's provided in the music, like what the music is bringing, or telling the story that it's telling, it says a lot about the art when you can and capture somebody that has no clue about the culture and just kind of drag you in via storytelling and sit you down. And in the last 10-15 years, I got into Nas, and like there's so many good hip hop storytellers out there. There's obviously the classic Immortal Technique song that's really dark, but like the storytelling is just fantastic. And also another thing I will note before going in here, typically the rapping about being the best or singing about being the best typically gets old for me rather quickly. And in hip hop, I started seeing a lot of like just commercialism and kind of ego pumping, and I just kind of got old after a while. I wanted a little more substance. And I didn't really have time to go digging for underground artists that really had great storytelling and stuff. But there's several tracks on this album that definitely constitute that, like, my love for that storytelling, and like Reincarnated is insane. We'll get to that though. Let's walk through here a little bit. We have Walk Out Murals, which is number 1, and I absolutely love. We start with there's a Spanish singer that starts off here, and it sounds gorgeous. And then we kind of lay down this, I like that the beat is constantly building here throughout this whole thing, and it starts with like, oh shit, this sounds like it gets your attention right off the rip. It's like a public announcement of some sort, in a way of it kind of the entrance of this song, and slowly starts building. And when that drop hits, I want to listen to Anita Baker. Like, it gets me in the mood to listen to some Anita Baker. That's how hard that drop is. Like, it's not the hardest drop you've ever heard, but it is solid. Man, like I was impressed right off the rip. There was only one part here that I didn't quite understand, and maybe you guys can break it down to me in the comments. There was a part where he just kind of stops rapping, and typically in hip hop, like I don't really like when, for example, edited hip hop for the radio, where they like blank out the words. It just feels like something's lacking there. I typically more prefer like when we're talking censorship, like for example what Akon did with Smack That, or I wanna love you. Excuse me, that was like a good transition for censorship. But like I don't like when it cuts off, and it almost feels like that's what's happening here. But I don't understand why. Obviously, the song is explicit, so that's not the case. So I'm missing something. I don't understand what's going on there. That little bit bothered me initially, and I've completely gotten over that. So this one goes hard. Like I really like this. This kind of gave me an instant like, oh shit, this reminds me of like West Coast like hip hop from back in the day for some reason. Like it just really slapped, and I was like, oh shit, okay. So then moving on to track number 2, we have Squabble Up, which is just so much fun. It's groovy. Like there's some odd flows. Just the lyrics in this are fantastic. I don't even know. Like just in the beginning, God knows I'm reincarnated. I was stargazing. Life goes on. I need all my babies. And it hits in. Woke up looking for the broccoli. You're like, God, why does this flow so good? High key, keep a horn on me. That Kamasi, whatever the hell was. It just flows so damn well. So damn well. This is a banger. Like this is a banger and a half. Like I was really impressed with this one. This was almost an instant, like it was in my playlist being listened to constantly. This track slapped. And then we rolled into Luther. And this is where things start getting interesting for me. Because we have a little bit of a slowdown here and much more of actually like an R&B vibe, the way this hits. And we have a feature from SZA here, and it's a damn good one. Like her voice and just they match so well here, so well, and it actually made me kind of appreciate her music as well a little bit more. I already enjoy her music. Don't get me wrong, but it made me look at her like, oh, she would have fit so well back in the day, like in like that West Coast style, like '90s music. At least I feel. And oh man, like this is just a nice slow jam. Very, very nice. Man of the Garden. Now this is one I don't honestly care for, and it's more so the ego thing. I deserve it all. I deserve it all. It just kind of gets old for me by the end of the song, even though it does kind of come around to everything at the end of the song. Still not my favorite thing I've heard off this album, and honestly, I don't think this will make a playlist, even though I have listened to it like I said, 20, 30 times, because this album, every time I went to review it, I would be like, I know I'm not good with bars. I need to listen to this one more time. Okay. Maybe one more time. I'm just catching little things in there, and honestly, I just came away with it like I'm not going to even bother breaking down bars because that's not my strong suit. I'm just going to tell you how this made me feel, and like this track was, like I said, I think in my opinion one of the worst, but that's fine. Hey Now with Doty 6, and also let me just say I absolutely love that he. A lot of the features we have here are just like small West Coast rappers, and I love that. Love that kind of setting up people from the other generations. That's always really cool to see. And this one, I'm not gonna lie. At first, like I put a square on his back like I'm Jack Dorsey. I'm like, okay, I mean, I get it. I don't think it hits all that hard. But the more and more I listen to it, the more and more this has grown on me, and I really, really like Doty's verse here. But the Hey Now, Say Now, I'm all about my yent. The repetition of Hey Now, Say Now was kind of, it got a little old, but it's still in constant repeat. So here we have my favorite song on this album, and there's so many things here. I think this is a restyled Pac song to start with. And one thing I got really excited about, maybe Outlaw song. Might be the Outlaws. I can't think of off the top of my head. But first, it has like this, again, the Spanish singer, like kind of opera style thing going on in the beginning. And then it kind of hits into like Kendrick's cadence is just so gruff on the intro. And it almost sounds like aggressive, kind of like Pac would have done a little bit. And the thing I kind of love behind all of this is, if you guys remember with the Drake beef, Drake dropped a AI pile of shit that included Pac and Snoop Dogg, and there's actually references to that Snoop Dogg, I pray it was the edibles, on Squabble Up. So that this kind of gets brought up, but it was dog shit. It was awful, and it was kind of insulting the way, using Pac's, it just felt very disrespectful through AI, especially. Like it just nothing sat right about it. But we're not going to get into that whole shit show. What I really appreciate about Kendrick is, to me, this was like stepping up to the plate and being like, "This is why I'm better than you, Drake." And it's not even an outright diss. He's using kind of a restructured Pac track, or at least an Outlaws track. He's rapping sort of like Pac in cadence on the intro of this. And I love that. So it's not only like he's paying respects to Pac. He's not using him for a fucking trollery or something. He was actually like, hey, like a tip of the hat to one of the greats. And I really appreciated that. Now, you have three different versions, three different verses here, each one kind of exploring a reincarnated or a past version of himself, or maybe that, like, the story leading up to where Kendrick is now, through three different pasts. You have the first one, who's a blues singer, and that's where we have the cadence that kind of comes in like Pac a little bit, and maybe he was trying to hit it a little bit more like kind of a raspy like blues singer, but I personally got a little bit more of a Pac vibe on that initial verse. The second verse comes in, the cadence has changed a little bit again, and we're talking about Billie Holiday. Like, I'm at least presuming that, with the heroin addiction and whatnot. And then finally you come to Kendrick, and he's rapping much more like himself, and it's a little more chill. The storytelling in here is just grade A. I'd go S tier, honestly. I am a sucker for a good rap song that is telling a story, makes me feel like I was there. And again, when you have somebody that's coming from a completely different place culturally, and it's like capturing you like that and dropping you right in the middle, and you feel like you're there and you understand the things that are happening, it's amazing. And this song is probably one of my favorites on here. I'll just keep going on about it. If we don't move on. TV Off with Lefty Gunplay. This is one of my favorite intros, I think, on this album. All I ever wanted was a black Grand National. Fuck being rational. Give them what they asked for. Like, just the whole intro slaps. And if I remember right, this is Mustard, which at first, I'm not gonna lie, threw me off, and I wasn't sure if I liked it. But now every time it comes on, it cracks me the fuck up. Like, I love it. The turn, the TV part off was a little weak, but it's all good. I like the outro. Crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious. I don't even know what the fuck that means, but hey, I'm here for it. Following that, we have Dodger Blue, which essentially, like, at first I was like, okay, this is cool, but I don't know if I love this. And the more I've listened to it again, I'm kind of catching some of that West Coast vibe with, like, kind of blending some R&B in with it. I like it. It grew on me. I'm not going to lie, man. This is good. This is good. Peekaboo with AZ Chike. This one was kind of I don't want to say a fluff track for me, but kind of a fluff track a little bit. And I would say this is the second worst track on this album, probably, but I still listen to it and I still fuck with it, honestly. Like, still pretty good. Heart Part 6. This is my second favorite track on here. Again, the storytelling. This time about Kendrick himself. And this song made me like immediately want to jump into Heart Part 1 through 5 and just kind of do the whole thing. So maybe I'll do a reaction, on that and post it up on our Nicecast reaction area. But this was like so cool. Like this one, I think was initially. I know I say I'm like really big on Reincarnated, but I think this is one that really captured me and said, "Oh damn, I need to listen to this whole album several times because every track is a different style, different flow. We have some R&B kind of tracks. We have some like bangers. We have some just kind of old school West Coast sounding stuff with like put a little intergalactic sounds in it, and it's interesting. Got to give them that. Definitely interesting. But Hard Part 6, like this was really cool. Just kind of digging in. We're talking about some Schoolboy Q in here and Ab Soul. And apparently they had a project called Black Hippie, which I was not actually aware of. So I have to, they're all artists that I need to catch up on. So again, you'll probably see me do some stuff there with that, hope potentially. So let's go ahead and go to the next one here, which is the final track, GNX, excuse me, not the final track, I forgot Gloria's on here. GNX. And this is some nice, again, we have Hitta, J3, Young Threat, not again, but we have Peso, and we have some smaller rappers. And again, I believe these are all, smaller West Coast rappers, which is, for the most part, which is cool. And I forgot to mention on the last track, Roddy Ricch is on there, which was a nice addition in my opinion. This is a solid track as well. Like, there's a Red Rum reference. This is kind of cool, just kind of a showcase, in my opinion, of the rappers that are out there right now a little bit, keeping things fun. And we end with Gloria, another track that has that kind of a Spanish intro going on to it with the opera. And at first, like, I wasn't sure about this one, but again, there's almost like a storytelling. But this one, the center, the content of the storytelling is a relationship, and maybe the whole history of said relationship. I don't know what the context is at all, but I did enjoy the storytelling about that, even if that's not typically a relationships. There's so many songs about them that it's not something I'm typically kind of looking for. But this was really well done again. And I want to, I don't know enough about beats or instrumentals or that kind of thing to go in depth there either. So it kind of sucks because this one has such a great sound. The care that went into the instrumental was really impressive to me, and definitely something that kept me coming back to this album time and time again, and probably will continue to do that into 2025 easily. I think with a rating for this track, this album, and while this isn't like a super in-depth review by any means, I do want to kind of share my rating here, and I think this is going to be an easy 9.5. I'm really, really impressed here. I need to go back and listen to Kendrick's stuff. Like I said, the only album, just discovering songs from Damn this year, which is just shows how far effing behind I am. But there was some tracks on, I think it was called Swimming Pool, on maybe the first or second album. Good Kid, Mad City. So it's like, what, second, third album, something like that. And I liked a couple tracks off that. I just never really dove deeper into it. So I don't know what the fuck I've been doing. You're going to see me talking about this more for sure. And depending on what you guys think, of course, every once in a while I'll drop something rap oriented and people will be like, you don't belong here. What the fuck are you doing? So if that's the case, I mean, I get it. But I do really like talking about music that makes me passionate, and this is something that I felt like I had to do a review on just because of how many times I came back to it. So easy 9.5, dubbed for Kendrick, in my opinion, album of the year, and I think I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think he should have artist of the year as well. He put out so many solid tracks that I personally feel that he was already in that talk for best artist of the year with the beef that he had with Drake and the verbal sparring there. I came into that beef as a Drake fan, and I not really listening to a whole lot of Kendrick, obviously, and I came out disliking Drake and loving Kendrick out of a beef. I'm not gonna lie though, I do gotta say I do think Drake did better in that than I anticipated. I thought Kendrick was going to just day one end it. And thankfully that didn't happen because we got some good ass tracks. So Not Like Us is obviously the banger everybody goes to, but Meet the Grams was probably some of the most vicious shit that I've ever listened to. Probably going right underneath of like King of the Hill for me from West Side Connection. Good shit. Good shit. And yeah, Euphoria, there was some great tracks, and I think he was already in that talk before GNX dropped, and then he snuck it in at the end of the year. I'm impressed, honestly. Easily, I would say, if I had to choose an artist of the year, this man's coming home with the dub. Again, let me know what you guys think of this new album. Your thoughts on me kind of covering some hip hop stuff. You know, obviously it's not something I'm well aware of, but I love getting passionate about almost any kind of music, and especially some good shit. And I think I might dip my toes back into the hip hop scene and just discover what's out there, especially in the storytelling front. I want to check out, there's some new Schoolboy Q, there's a new Ab Soul record. There's some stuff floating around out there that I'm definitely curious about, and I wouldn't mind going back and again kind of touching on some of those albums like Pac Me Against the World that I grew up listening to and kind of just brought me to a whole nother way of living that I didn't even like had no way of knowing at the time. Like, you know, back in like the 90s and late 2000s, the world, you had a lot of culture bubbles because the internet wasn't really big yet. So you had people out in the country that had no clue how people in the city, like huge suburbs, were living, and vice versa. There was a huge disconnect there. And with the internet kind of bringing everybody together, it's kind of cool that we can talk about stuff like this. So, yeah. Again, guys, make sure you guys go give Kendrick some love and give this album a listen. It's well worth your time. Banger of an album. Fucking banger. I don't drop 9s that often, but this is getting a 9.5. So, all right, peace.